this might be the penultimate 4020 Not Live because next week on Monday there's games on with people, which is exciting. And the week after, unless everything changes, which as we know from Christmas, it could happen. We're going to be back in situ. Have you got some tape we can put on the floor to make sure we're all in?
What to
boxes?
Mark out the body?
I don't know. I assume you've not seen Arsenal Fan TV because no. I mean, they are a very successful YouTube channel, mainly because Arsenal are crap these days, and people watch them to overreact to Arsenal being rubbish. But they've had to socially distance each other throughout their watch-alongs. I mean, they've kept going while this whole thing's been going on, which I don't know how they're essential workers. Maybe they're lightening the mood of the nation. Obviously, Arsenal being rubbish is much more important than people talking about rugby league, as we know. But never mind. It is 4020 Not Live. We're going to be talking a lot about the championship in a bit, which will please many people. I'm trying to think, Phil, of what's the main headline this week. I think we should just talk about what's gone on the field and take it from there, because there's one story I want to talk about later, but I can weave it into the narrative of what's gone on. But unless there's something vaguely obvious that isn't connected to anything.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One is it's Water Splash commemorative day.
It is.
So that's good. In a week that Leeds are playing Wakefield, highly appropriate. And it's rained a lot. So there you go. Just thought I'd mention that.
Wearing a green T-shirt, which is what the pitch was like at half-time, and then the rain came down.
I like to see you cry. And I think the other thing is hats off to Ross Peltier, who stood in the local elections for the Green Party, still playing at Doncaster and perform well, and obviously we're not talking about the political agenda, but got a sufficient number of votes to just great to see rugby league players with conscience, and I'm glad he had a really good turnout. I'm glad he felt that he could do that and play semi-professional rugby league at the same time, and good luck to him. And I thought we should at least acknowledge the fact that he had stood and very nearly won a seat.
Like Ronnie the Rhino in '97.
Who I think may have lost his deposit, but didn't come last.
No.
Count Binface.
Well, unlike Leeds that year. Oh, no,
yeah.
Leeds in '97.
97, they were just starting to get better.
Yeah. No, I forgot about that. That's after the sold SCO, isn't it? For a massive amount of money to the Huddersfield Giants. We'll be back, people. He's coming back. It's all exciting.
Says he wants to.
There you go. How is he? Because obviously it gives you the updates on his condition.
Yeah, I think he had a bit of a setback, but all being well, moving in the right direction again. Good. And certainly making his opinions known every time something happens in the game that he feels he needs to vent about. So he hasn't changed.
Oh, good. Everyone's favourite Aussie will be joining us for the first show back as well, which is good news. No, not Courtney Winfield Hill, John Davidson. In the Challenge Cup, where's my screen's gone all funny? Here we are. We've got a new laptop. Challenge Cup quarterfinals. I thought the games on Friday, I don't know if it was because they just felt flat to me for some reason. And I don't know if that was just me or...
I think if we're talking men's quarterfinals,
yes.
The good thing was that all of the games were competitive. There weren't any huge blowouts in any of the four matches, and I think there has been some concern on both hemispheres that maybe it's the new rules, maybe it's the way some teams adapt to them better than others, maybe it's injuries, but there has been a propensity for a blowout score most weeks. But I think we got four relatively competitive quarterfinals where there wasn't a lot between the teams. I was there on Friday. I thought Catalan let themselves down. Made too many mistakes, and I think again when you fall behind in a winner takes all match, your process that everybody talks about tends to go out the window. They looked more a collection of individuals rather than playing to any degree of pattern. Warrington were supremely efficient, but you got the impression there that they were never going to lose, that the indiscipline of the Dragons was going to undermine themselves. I actually thought that the best of the 4 games was St Helens and Huddersfield. I thought Saints were pushed probably in a way that they haven't been most of this year. And Huddersfield clearly are a team on the up. I think when we spoke last week, I had a feeling that they were going to get their first win against Leeds. It came in the most dramatic of fashion, but because of that, it breeds a certain confidence and belief that Ian Watson ways probably are going to work, and the players suddenly realise what it is they're being asked to do. And I thought they never went away against St Helens, and for that game again to go to the last set of 6 before you knew who won it, that was an outstanding game with real intensity to it. Regan Gray showed his flashes of absolute brilliance, and the fact that he signed a new deal to keep in rugby league and the union hands off him is again great news. Clearly Tommy Makinson went off very early, which disrupted Saints, and Louis McCarthy Scarsbrook had to have a head test, fill in your own joke there. But obviously that meant that their rotation were affected. But Huddersfield were really, really gritty. And Darnell McIntosh's try in the corner was fantastic as well. So that was a great game. I thought Holland-Wigan that started off Saturday, again, just overly physical, but if you're old school, exactly what we want to see. There wasn't a huge amount of skill involved on either side, which is not to detract from some of the performances. I thought Adam Swift was absolutely outstanding for Holland, and clearly they learnt the lessons of the week before as to how to play Wigan. Wigan didn't move the ball enough to make you think that they were going to score enough points, and the whole pack, particularly Tavita Satai, absolutely monstered their Wigan counterparts and deserved winners. But it was one for the purists.
I thought he got away with chucking the ball at Sam Powell's head though when he scored that try. I not many people picked up on that. I certainly didn't pick up on it on the TV. I thought he got away with that one, but
I don't know if he was throwing it at Sam Powell or just throwing it in exuberance that he'd scored a try. But
Sam Powell just got in the way of it.
Clearly, the referee didn't seem to think that it was a deliberate ploy, and I think had he wanted to genuinely throw it at Sam Powell, he would have hit Sam Powell. But,
he got in the World Cup's Team of the Week this week, so he must have been impressive.
I also think that sets a marker for the rest of the season. Again, Wigan have not managed to complete the job in the Challenge Cup and been out-muscled it was the semi-final last year. It's been in a quarter-final this year. That will leave them scratching their heads thinking, what do we need to do when it comes to those big knockout games? Whereas Hull now need to build on the back of that, because we've seen it before that they can get up for a cup tie, but how do they transfer that into every week performing like that and getting to a grand final and maybe even winning it? But I think John, was it Jamie Peacock was saying he now views them as the favourites in the competition because that is the marker that they've set down. I think their semi-final against St Helens will be absolutely fantastic. Can't wait for that. And I think the Salford-Castleford game wasn't great in terms of the quality for the 80 minutes. But you could not take your eyes off it. And as we say, if you get two teams who are playing at a level where they match each other, it's just drama and it's everything we love about the sport. And does it really matter that we didn't see a lot of Jake Truman in that game? And maybe it was always destined that it was going to end in golden point, and that there could only be one person on that field that was going to settle that. And I don't know. I thought we had 4 games that fairly reflected some of the best things we've got in the sport, and either that was drama to the end, that was physicality, that was outright skill, or it was the ability to last the full 80 minutes. But I thought as a 4, we saw some great games in the Challenge Cup. The revival of the Challenge Cup itself, perhaps this weekend.
Maybe I was being overly harsh because I'm on tablets for migraines. Maybe that was my problem. I think what we can say is I know this is the buzzword now around Huddersfield is trusting the process, and I think we've said this all the time about Ian Watson and Huddersfield. You can see that they're going to get better, and you can see they're going to put a run of wins together at some point. There's no cause for concern with Huddersfield, and to run St Helens close again, you can see that run will come sooner rather than later. Catalans, as you say, they're in discipline, and again, that's Warrington twice now in the space of a few weeks have beaten them at home and on British soil. Catalans' inconsistency. Consistently inconsistent, as they say.
They've made a great start to the season in Super League, but they haven't been able to back that up in 2 games against Warrington. And there's an ingredient there that is still missing. And I didn't think James Maloney got his hands on the ball enough. Now, I'm sure that if we look at the stats and the way Steve McNamara wanted them to play, that that may have been because Warrington were good at denying the ball. I also think Michael McAlorum clearly isn't fully fit at the moment, and it's such a key position that, again, it's going to take a little bit of time to get that spine working in whatever way Steve McNamara wants them to. But they nullified Sam Tompkins a little bit, and that seemed to take a lot of the attacking edge out of Catalan as well. I don't know, that something was missed. Ben Garcia was superb. I mean, he again puts himself about. You can't ask for more effort from that. Mike McMeekin is a threat, but they need to find a way of getting the ball into his hands and in space a little bit more. They seem to me to be stuck between 2 philosophies. One is the try that they scored, which is let's just throw the ball between our legs and do whatever it needs to get it to someone who can get it over the whitewash, and let's be overly playing whatever it is the coach is asking them to play. That is a very structured style, and the last couple of weeks they seem to have fallen between those two stools. The one thing I will say is if they can get the ball to Tom Davis, I reckon he's one of the best finishers we've got in Super League. Really, really impressed with him, alongside the likes of a Makinson and a Tom Johnson. If I was Sean Wayne, I'd seriously be looking at Tom Davis's international quality. But they've got to get him the ball in his hands and the space to be able to use it. Faray, I think, is a great addition, but that balance over the last 2 weeks has been lacking for some reason.
We'll talk about the draw, and then we'll talk about something else, and then talk about the women's competition, because it kind of need to wrap up the men's bit first. Couldn't ask for a better draw in both competitions, but in the men's first, Saints Hull, as you mentioned, a nice clash of 2 sides, and then obviously you've got the great Daryl Powell derby between Castleford and Warrington. The stories write themselves for that one. With the seemingly, half the cast team following Daryl Powell across the Pennines, it's like what happens in the women's game these days. More of that to come. That's going to be a fascinating semi-final. They're obviously they're going to play each other at some point in the future, but now it's going to be on the telly for everyone to see on the BBC.
We've got a month to build it up, and we've got to make the most of this rivalry. Clearly, Hull and St Helens have had some fantastic battles in cup games recently, and we need to clearly be not only highlighting the fact that Hull are the up and coming force and want St Helens crown, but they genuinely do start that game. I would say, if we were to put odds on it as of today, a virtual level playing field. The other game, if you cannot get stories out of Cass and Warrington meeting at this stage in the competition, we've got the whole idea that, is Daryl Powell going to go out with a trophy? If he is the most likely trophy the Challenge Cup. Now the team that stands in his way is the one that he's going to. And that writes itself. You rightly say there isn't a Castleford player at the moment who isn't being linked with Warrington today. It's Ollie Holmes is going to be the next one that's going over there. Peter Matauti is already signed. Paul McShane isn't. He's going to stay at Castleford, and there's all the question marks over Truman and whether he's going to be wearing amber and black or primrose and blue. If we cannot get copy out of this, and what we actually want is now some people on both of those sides to realise that this is a story and they need to play to it. We want Daryl Powell to be saying, I have absolutely no compulsion in even talking to Warrington for the next month about players they might want for next year. They're in my sights. I want them. And we want Warrington to be saying, we're not ringing Daryl for, we have got our own agenda here, and he may be with us next year, but, we're going to do everything we can to absolutely undermine the team that he's going to be, playing against us. And, we have to make the most of it. We talk all the time about, it's not about suits, it's about players and personalities. But what Zach Hardacre said before the first Hull game was fantastic in terms of there is newspapers full of what you got to live up to it. Jake Connor didn't in the first game. Zach himself didn't in the second game, and then came on and admitted it. But this is the kind of stuff that will sell rugby league and get viewers. So the draw could not have been better from that point of view.
Oliver Holmes would have some very big head tape to live into as a blonde forward if he moved over to Warrington, wouldn't he? But I would say to Warrington Wolves, if you're thinking about doing a podcast, and we'll talk more about podcasts later, don't put him with Tom Lynham. Probably not a good idea. No, we like you all. It's all right. Speaking of media, we said last week on this programme, as we presciently say many things, and sometimes we get things right and sometimes we get things wrong. And we did say on this programme last week, whatever punishment the RFL doled out to Tony Clubb would be either said to be not enough or too much or whatever. And as was the case when the decision was made on Tuesday, I don't know why it took a couple of days for the notes to come out, because I think they would have been better to come out at the same time, because they made interesting reading. The problem with these cases is, and always will be, unless you mic everyone up and record everything, it is a case of Tony Clubb says he said this and Andre Cervello says he heard that. And then the people who are charged with deciding which which evidence, I don't know the right phrase to use, but people know what I mean. So, Tony Clubb's got an 8-game ban. I think what you said last week made more sense about the re-education, and I know Wigan have mentioned that in their statement or whatever, but
I think there's a couple of things. One is the process. Is this a disciplinary issue, or is there now a case for saying there is a diversity board at the RFL? This is exactly the kind of case that they should deal with, because the match review panel look at things that happen in games that are clearly to do with whether the laws of the sport on the field in terms of how it's played have been infringed. This is something slightly different. So if you're going to have a diversity board, then what are you using it for? What are you hoping its aims and objectives are? And what's the legacy of that? And I think I do agree that there is a case for saying a case like this gets referred to them, and it doesn't necessarily have to be dealt with by the Monday after the game. It may need longer. It may need to take a different sort of evidence. It may need to get both parties in a room and decide between themselves which is the best way to move forward. So I think that's one thing. Is it the right forum in which to decide the punishment? And I have to say, the more you think about it, probably isn't. I think the other thing is the wording of the statement that the disciplinary panel put out needed to be just a little bit more self-explanatory and tighter, because two things worried me. One was, we acknowledged that what was said was racist, but the person that said it wasn't. I don't know how you draw the line between those two. I don't think I'm sufficiently versed in this matter to be able to even investigate that, but it just seemed an inherent contradiction. And I think the other thing that worried me a little bit in terms of the wording was in the heat of the moment, because I'm not sure that is an acceptable defense for anything.
So say if I go on social media, Phil, in the heat of the moment and send a similar, the same words to someone, what's the difference between me and a professional rugby league player?
I'm not sure that's a defence. So I think to put that as we have made our decision based on that again, left the sport open to some of the accusations of those that thought the punishment wasn't sufficient. And I just think you've got to be very careful. And again, if you've got a diversity board, which is meaningful and includes a whole range of people that cover a lot of different cultural identities, then that's the work of that board. And the wording that would have come out from that board, I think, would have been very different from a disciplinary board. They are there to, view a different form of indiscretion, if you like. So if we've learned anything from this, and I have no idea whether 8 games is a fair reflection or not, I think what we need to look at now and change is the process when this next happens, that somebody makes an allegation that involves what they deem to be offensive from a racist point of view, how we analyse and the punitive sanction that comes from that has to now be set apart from a standard disciplinary process.
I mean, apart from summing up this by saying the most stupid thing is adding that word in between the word stupid and the other word, because then you are opening yourself up to anything, as we learned from the John Terry case. But it's what gets me is I can understand fans and I can understand it, but it frustrates me immensely on social media because they just, they will defend the indefensible, and that's fine. I can understand it. Orange is orange, but when it's somebody else's club, it's purple. But when people within our industry use false equivalence, you can't compare using racist language to grabbing an opponent's testicles, because they're different offences. Yes, they are graded on the same scale of bans, but you can't compare the two. And especially when you're saying, well, George Flanagan got 10 games. Yes, but he got 10 games for a second offence for the same thing. That's why he got 10 games. You can't say, well, he got this and he got... It's just, well, you're stoking a fire and you know what you're doing, and I don't know why you're doing it.
Which is why I would take it out of the standard disciplinary process, and then all those comparisons can't be made. The other interesting case that is going to get some more air is clearly the reaction of some of his ex-teammates to Jared Haynes' sentence in Australia.
Yes.
We saw that New York Freedom, who had signed Tony Williams, immediately cancelled his contract because they felt that the way Williams had come out in support of convicted felon as opposed to the terrible victim was so completely wrong that they didn't want him associated with their club. And I think that is to the absolute credit of New York Freedom to do that. The next cab off that same rank is clearly Chris Naninu at Salford, and Salford have started a process whereby there is an investigation going on. I think we need to think about if there is something that needs to come from the centre to decide what's acceptable and what isn't, what he might be charged with in terms of bringing the game into disrepute, what players putting things on social media, where that line is between acceptable and completely not acceptable. Who is going to decide that? And again, what disciplinary process is that going to go through? And I'm not sure, again, it's a match day process. And it goes back to exactly what you were just saying about, the George Flanagan issue is going to be compared to what Chris Naninu's, but it isn't. It's apples and oranges. So I think on the basis of the Tony Club one has happened around the same time as Chris Naninu will now be probably asked to explain what he said, or will it be deemed that what he said is completely unacceptable and inappropriate? How do you get, again, a punishment that fits that crime?
I know words can be misconstrued, and I'm not going to say I know what he thinks he wrote and what he doesn't think he wrote, but it would be very hard not to read what he put on Instagram and read it not as blaming the victim. And he can say that he didn't intend that, and that's fine, but that's how it read. I don't understand why he needed to do that. And it goes back to...
I don't understand why he needed to do that publicly either.
Well, yes,
I think,
yeah.
if he wants to ring his friend and say, I'm here for you, that's fine. But, you know, clearly he is now convicted of a criminal offence. He may well appeal, and that appeal may overturn the sentence. But as we sit here today, he's in a almost 6-year jail sentence for a crime that he has been found guilty of. You can't defend that. You can still be his friend if you want to be his friend and offer him support. But the one thing you cannot do is take anything away from who is the absolute victim in this process. And if you are supporting the perpetrator at the expense of the victim, there is a price that you need to pay as well.
With the nature of the crime, with the morals, the standards, and whatever you want to say that we as a sport and as people within hold ourselves up to, victim blaming is abhorrent. And it reminds me of, in a completely different sense, when Israel Folau was sacked by Rugby Australia, and one of his friends who plays for the England rugby union team, and I can't remember which one it was, so I'm not going to name them because I don't want to name the wrong person, posted his support on Instagram. It's always Instagram. I don't know why. Twitter's about words. Why do you do it on Instagram? Put his support out for him on Instagram. And I think, look, I'm not naive to think there aren't people out there within rugby league who don't think the same as Israel Folau. I would be very stupid not to think that, because I know there are people out there in rugby league who think very abhorrent things about things, because we've seen it on social media. But to say it publicly, you're being punished there for your own stupidity, because because you're told what you can and can't say.
And there's absolute right and wrong in this as well. You know, this isn't unequivocal. This isn't a philosophical divide or, you know, a religious belief, whatever, however you want to put it. This is now, you know, been enacted in a court of law, and a sentence has been passed down. So, you know, respect that and the process behind it, and don't comment on it if you haven't got the good sense to realize where that line is. And there has, you know, again, I'm not the person in any way whatsoever to decide the punishment that goes with what Chris Ninu may or may not have said, but I think there has to be clearly a process that will examine it outside of match day and set an example. You cannot just say what you want because you've got a platform to do it. You have to be accountable for what you say.
Especially not off the back of a weekend where professional sport has told everyone that you are accountable for what you say on social media. You can't then use your platform, as you say, to say whatever you want and say, oh, no, I can do whatever I want. Well, and I feel sorry for those who run the sport, run Salford Red Devils, who do all these things for the right reasons, and then someone comes along, player, staff, whatever, might as well throw it in the bin. Because your respect campaigns, all your let's stand for 13 seconds. We all watched it last weekend and thinking, right, we're standing for 13 seconds, but what's the point? And I'm not saying this, and I know we've had the word in the past, and we're not criticizing the hard work that he's done. We're not. It's just standing there for 13 seconds. But if the players, you know, tackling all kinds of abuse, but they go off and do this and that and the other.
I don't think you can undermine the message. You've got to reinforce the message. And I do think at the moment that the 13 seconds being respected in different ways, it may well give people the individual responsibility to decide how they're going to do it, but it doesn't work. The message for me now is not strong enough. So if you've got a message and you want to reinforce it and you want to put the tackle it banners up, think of something we can all do that actually reinforces that message, whether that's taking a knee or putting your hand across your heart or whatever it is, you know, turning it with your back to something, whatever it is, let's all do it. Because if you don't all do it, that message is diluted to the point where it becomes tokenism, and there is a danger that that's what it looks like at the moment. And as you say, if unless everybody buys into it and you realize what that means in terms of what you post on social media, what respect is, and we may need a lot more education for every player in every team as to why they're doing it, what it means, and what they're supporting, and getting them to buy in more to it so they understand what it is. But at the moment, it just feels like a halfway house to me.
I do feel very aware that I am a 40-year-old white man talking about issues of discrimination, and I am acutely aware of that. And
but I think you've hit on something else here, which is important, and I think is worth us debating with our guests when they come on. I think it's really difficult for people to decide what is best for other generations. There's been a fair amount of talk this week amongst people who are all of a certain age and background about whether the laws are working. Now, I know we're not talking about quite as weighty a subject as we just have for the last 10 minutes, but there's almost a parallel here that, there are those who are used to scrums and seeing the game played a certain way who are saying, there's something missing at the moment out of the game. I'm not sure it's up for us to say that. I think you need to go to the next generation of fans and say, are you happy with what you're watching? Do you think that the product as it's being played out is exciting enough? Is there too much reliance on speed at the extent of it? Or are you happy with it? By not having scrums, which is an evolution of the game for whatever reason, by having 6 again, which again is open to a little bit of interpretation, but you're seeing a product that's perhaps speeded up more than we have ever seen in the past, and the ball's in play even more than it ever used to be, and fatigue is now I don't know, it's an issue because the teams that can keep the ball in play more and are fitter have got a greater advantage? Or is it that, I don't know, once you've lost possession, it's too hard to get it back, and that's leading to that? It's all right us discussing it, because we're used to seeing a certain way of play, but it's not about us. And we got a couple of guys coming on that play in a different division that are used to perhaps seeing an evolution of a different kind of product, and they might like it. And let's ask them and take their opinion, because I'm not sure they're asked enough.
Well, let's do that now, and then we'll do something else. So we've got some guests from Oldham, and I'll let them introduce themselves after we've had a chat about something else. So I'm not going to edit it because it was actually an interesting point. So here they are. Let's talk some more rugby league with some people from Oldham.
How's it been with you not being able to do live ones during COVID?
It's been different.
We've adapted like everyone's adapted.
Yeah. I think when I mean, I've not discussed this with Phil, but I think we'll still do some like these. Not every week, but
yeah,
it's easy to speak to people now.
Yeah, it's open up a new avenue.
Yeah, not having them traipse to Leeds. So it's
why wouldn't you want to traipse to Leeds?
Yeah. I mean, I never want to leave the house again. But
no, we don't either.
It's going to be nice to get everything back to how it was, because I think some people have enjoyed these shows, but some people prefer what we did before. And some people like both.
What we miss is the interaction while we're actually doing it, because obviously you can ask for questions in advance, but it's not the same as somebody sending in something that they want you to comment on while you're actually there and live and can discuss it. So it's going to be a balance. So that everything's going to change. We're not going to see any office blocks built from here on in. So
no, it's a bit more raw when you're in person, isn't it?
You can look in the white of people's eyes and try and give them the evil stare.
I can still see you doing it now.
Only works with biscuits. Just wait till we're trying to get it on Facebook and YouTube, and I'll try to get it on Twitch at the same time as well. That's going to be great fun. Gentlemen, I might just leave all that in, because this is what we do. We're rough and ready. This is, we're having a conversation about rugby league. Introduce yourselves to the audience. Tell the people who you are and what you do and why you've got Oldham shirts behind you.
Well, yeah, so we're Oldham fans. We run the Oldham Rugby League podcast. We're brothers. I'm Jamie. This is Christian.
Yeah.
I do the talking. Christian does the nodding.
I acknowledge.
Yeah, he's the rugby league knowledge. I do the talking. So yeah, we're just trying to do something for Oldham Rugby. We're trying to get it out there, something for the fans. The more we get used to it, we're going to start doing more stuff like this.
It's been a perfect opportunity to do this kind of thing because obviously everyone's stuck at home.
Yeah.
Why Oldham? What made you fall in love with the Roughyeds, as they're apparently known in the first place?
That'll be our dad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a family thing. It's a generational thing of dad's dad, so our granddad, our dad, us, our sister even.
Yeah.
We love it. We support Oldham in football as well, but we're a big rugby league family.
Do you never wish, because obviously, I support Wakefield, and you never think, I wish my family had supported someone, who actually won things and were good.
Truthfully, in my end, no, because I love the being able to look up at all that and being a bit more open to conversations. Like we can sit here and talk about Super League and the Championship, whereas you see a lot more Super League fans and it's Super League only.
Yeah, what division do Oldham play in? I've got no idea. You play National Conference or something?
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I enjoy it. It's a bit more. We're a semi-pro / professional team. We have a small fan base. Everyone knows everyone. I mean, I suppose in rugby league in general, but more so for us because we're a bit of a tighter knit club.
Clearly, you're a lot younger than I am. I can't speak for Richard. And one of the discussions we was having with somebody this week is what actually appeals in current day rugby league to the younger fan, because you're the generation that we need to bring on board. We sit there going, it's not the rules have changed and it's not like it used to be. But what is the attraction for people of your age?
Oh, I love how fast paced it is. It's so raw. It's not like you watch football and players rolling around on the floor. You see, we watched the last Oldham game and there was a clash at the start of the game with Liam Kirk and he went off.
And you're back on
head
with
injury, and it's straight back to it. I love watching it.
You're involved in it, especially on a fan base. The one thing I love, I've been doing it for a few years. He's still a bit younger than me, but even going to the ground, the interaction with opposition, you don't get that in football and other sports. It's you sat with the away fans, you're giving each other grief, and then you're having a beer with them afterwards. Football, you're separated from them and then you're separated outside. And there's just more of a family feel to rugby. And I feel like it appeals to the younger people if you involve them. I don't think there's been much involvement, whereas the last few years, there's a lot. It's growing, it's getting better. But the rugby league needs a bit more publicity. I don't know if it's being done right from the top down, to be honest.
I think talking of the top down, clearly one of the issues that we've been talking about on this podcast for a while, it's sort of come home to roost a little bit now with the details of the television deal coming out, is how is that going to affect a club like Oldham? Because let's assume at this stage that the central funding that you'll be getting will be negligible to the point of how do you survive without it? How is streaming money going to help you? How are podcasts like yours going to get more people involved? Are you optimistic about the future? Do you think a club like Oldham can survive? Would it be a terrible thing if you became more of a community-based club than a semi-professional outfit? How are you sort of viewing it at that level at the moment?
Oh, I think at the minute the chairman's done a fantastic job with the recruitment, and I think how it's handled
without the fans
the season,
and the money and
full stop. Yeah, without fans.
I think with the Super, we've never, as a Oldham, you never really get as a club like us. We haven't really got much money for a few years now. Or since Super League has been around, it's always been the attraction for a reason. But I think even if there's talks of Championship getting Premier Sports or another kind of deal, I think even with that, we're still going to be at the bottom end of that. So like you said, how is it going to affect us? I think things like our league have been massive for us because we've been able to see viewing figures and we've been getting. It's been a bit more personalised. We've been able to have to do our own advertising as a club. So it helps us. We then get a platform to do the advertising, to get the players on and advertise. I think every club below the Super League is becoming more of a community-based club, just because it has to.
And that raises another question about ambition, because we talk a lot about clubs that can be in Super League, those who it might be a bit like Icarus flying towards the sun and it burns them. And I mean, I am old enough to remember watching Oldham in Super League, and it was probably the worst thing actually at the time that could have happened. And I'm not even sure the club's fully recovered from that experience yet. And it was in there too soon and without the necessary resource to make it sustainable. If you're saying that the way things might operate in the future, there's a full-time Super League somewhere on the horizon, there's a community-based Oldham club playing in the Championship, does that bother you? Is that something that we should worry too much about?
I think we've gone from a League One club to being a Championship club, so there's ambition and there's being realistic. I think fans for a long time come to terms with us being a bit of a yo-yo club. Being League One, we'll go up to the Championship. In the last few years, we've been toying. So, unlike teams like your Featherstone and your Bradfords who are up there, and even your Halifax, London, Widnes, they're the clubs that are going to be more affected with needing to be in the Super League. I think we're happy with being a Championship club. I think that is our level. I don't think we have ambition to be in the Super League, truthfully. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But yeah, I don't think we've ever got the plan to be there, truthfully.
It's probably a good thing, because if you are realistic, and the number of clubs we've spoken to over the past few months in League One and the Championship who are happy with their lot, so to speak, and just happy to get on with things and be in the position they're in and keep going, because
playing rugby,
as we've seen Widnes in recent years shoot for the moon, and well, look where they are in the table at the moment. And a bit, I mean, obviously Toulouse are a very good team and beat them heavily at the weekend, but they're still suffering. They're still suffering from the financial issues of a couple of years ago, obviously. And you'd much rather be in a position where, yes, you might get heavily beaten by Toulouse, but at least you're financially stable. And if you're going to be battling against relegation, at least you're putting up a fight week in, week out.
Yeah. Well, like this year, like you said, normally we've been battling relegation. We've been a club that we know where we'd need to be, and it's more of picking out your points and trying to stay up. Whereas this season, the ambition seems a bit more, we want to be up in that middle end. We've been going to teams and not giving them the respect that they expect. And if we can, for a few years, become an established team, I think that's when you start looking at, can we take that next step? But for the moment, I think the aim is to become established in the Championship, and that's a futuristic aim as well. It's not really a short-term aim.
What if somebody said to you that the way for the club to grow and perhaps even, I don't know, be more competitive with the sides that are either full-time professional or have got Super League aspirations, that we return to the ideas of there is a greater Manchester out there that could be Oldham and Swinton and Rochdale, and you could retain your identities, but that would be the Super League club that would sit above you. Would you support it? Is that something that we should even be putting on the table for fans like you to discuss or oppose?
I think that was something that was tried once, weren't it? I think before my time or when I was younger.
Never happened, but it's
happened. Yeah, was it Salford?
Yeah, it would sort of be under the umbrella of making Manchester more of a rugby league area by putting together all the elements that are in that geographical spread to get the best of everything. But I think in the past it was you had to subvert being Oldham to be part of something bigger. I think we learnt the lesson that said if there is a point of having a Manchester club grafted in, then the feeder clubs need to retain their identity. But would that even appeal to young guys like yourself?
I think, in my opinion, I don't know what Christian's opinion is. My opinion is, I think I'd rather us stay as Oldham. I think it sounds good. You likelihood is you'd get more fans, you'd be a bit more of a sustainable club, and maybe even a Super League standard club. But I think we'd lose a bit of our identity a bit then. We wouldn't be Oldham. There's a bit of a history with Oldham. You know, we didn't like see it or experience it, but I think we've got good amateur pedigree, and I think going into something like Swinton are pretty much a Manchester club at the moment, and they don't currently receive the fans, and they're not a big-ish club. They're on our level, or if not a little bit smaller than us. And I think if that's not working, Salford currently don't get a massive following. I don't know if it'd work. I don't know if it would make a difference. And I don't think I'd want to see it. I'm Oldham, not Manchester.
This is like, it's the same in West Yorkshire where Leeds wants to take over everything. I can feel your pain. I know exactly how you feel. And if we look at results on the field this year, a couple of impressive wins, Swinton in the first week and against Halifax as well, are obviously one of the teams who were expected to be up there this year. Narrow defeat against London away from home as well. You must be pleased with the way things have been going generally on the field so far this year.
Yeah, we've got a good squad this year. It's quite strong. It's got a very good depth. We've definitely shown improvement from the first game of the season. Like the game against the battle that we had, there were lots of things to take out of that game. Same as London, I think they were in it for the taking. We just didn't acknowledge that, and we made a few too many errors. But that's slowly getting rid of. It's becoming, I think, what we want it to be.
Yeah, we've definitely gone from being a club that, like I said earlier, instead of picking your games, we're going into every game and we're trying. But it's a bit of a yo-yo league at the moment where, like you said with Widnes earlier, you'd expect Widnes to be in the game, at least. So there's a lot of teams that are picking up and dropping points, and the same with us. We went into the London game and we thought we could have took that, followed it up with a win against Halifax, which were two impressive games. But then we were a bit unfortunate again in the result against Haven, which the result didn't match the game.
How are you finding? Sorry, go on.
No, so I was just saying, in terms of where you're playing from at the moment as well, you're not actually in Oldham.
No.
You're in Stalybridge, which is probably a facility that suits the level that you're playing at. But would you like to see some purpose-built arena or stadium or facility in the town again?
It would be nice, I guess. Every club wants their own stadium, and it'd be nice to just have something to call home. There's a little bit of, some fans think we're playing away every week because you have got a lot of Oldham fans travelling from Oldham to Stalybridge. Like we're currently in Manchester, so we're travelling to games anyway. But it would be nice. I think it'd always be nice to have your own stadium and to have something in Oldham that you can call your own. So I mean, if that ever come about, that'd be amazing. But with Chris, what Chris does, the chairman at the moment, is top class with the stadium that we're currently in. Like, it's a good standard for us. With the players he's brought in, with everything at the club, especially during COVID, there was obviously thoughts of how we're going to keep going.
So you've never experienced the joys of the watershed-ins then?
Never managed.
I don't remember it anyway. My dad says he took me, but no, I didn't get that.
You'd remember if he'd taken you. You'd have been cold for 3 weeks afterwards, and that was in the middle of August.
I'm still thawing out from being at Wakefield a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going back on Sunday. I must be mad. And that was sunny that day as well. I was going to ask you, Oldham, obviously, football club there, Oldham Athletic, used to be run by the man who used to fund our programme back in the Radio Yorkshire days.
Okay.
Back when he used to have less grey hair. Good old Mr. Bates. But where does the rugby club fit into the sporting universe around Oldham? Because obviously there's so many big football clubs around the city, the town, and rugby clubs as well.
Yeah, the football club suffers just like the rugby, I think. I just think the rugby club suffered a lot more with a bit of misfortune, I think, with watershed-ins, and I don't know what went on back then, and we were unfortunate didn't get the stadium. But that's the unfortunate thing. Around Oldham, you've got Manchester, you're close to Yorkshire. And obviously with rugby, the Yorkshire side takes effect. With rugby, I think there's a lot to tap into. I think we could tap into a lot of areas in Oldham, but I think we'd have to be in Oldham.
In terms of fans, I mean, clearly one of the things we're focusing on at the moment is they're back on Monday. You're due to go to Featherstone 8:00 Monday night. I would assume that, to start with, even if there is capacity, it'll only be home fans rather than away fans.
Yeah.
How much are you looking forward to it, and what have you missed the most about not being able to go?
I think just being able to watch the games and having the aspect of winning a game,
the raw emotion.
You miss a lot.
Yeah, it's having the emotion, being able to mix in, to see the players, to feel the tackles, as sad as it sounds. You're there. It's different when you're there. When you score a try, the emotions there. It's not the same when you sit on your couch. As much as you're in your comfort and you've got a beer in your hand, to be there and have the emotion, and to have 5 jackets on because you're freezing, and to be with the away fans again would be good as well. I think that's a big thing. That's the next step. I think once home fans are in, I think it'd be getting the away fans in whenever that will be. Just for atmosphere itself. When the players come out, when you win, when you lose, because I don't know what it's like in the Super League after being out the game, but you get the players coming over and speaking to you after the game and coming into the clubhouse. It's going to be a bit different with COVID, but that'd be good to have back, to be able to have the interaction with the players again. That's another thing I think can bring younger fans into the game, because you've got the interaction, especially at our level. It's been massive to get back in. Just for one thing, it's finances for the club.
How much have you enjoyed being able to watch the games in our league? Obviously, it's been a completely different experience than being at the games, but being able to watch them must be quite a boost so far this year.
Yeah, it's been nice. We had nothing from March last year, and it's back up and running. It's good to get back watching it.
Yeah, it's been good to have that comfort of, if you can't go to a game,
you're still able to watch.
You've got our league there. It's something that it'd be nice to have as a permanent feature. We've never had that. It's, if you can't get to a Super League game, you turn Sky on, you're all right. With Oldham, if you don't get there, you're looking on Flash Scores or BBC Sport for every 20-minute update. So it's been good to get, again, raw commentary, because you've got your own town commentaries on and the amateur camera, and it's just good to watch. It's good to be able to turn your team on at weekend and watch them at home, which we've never had. So it's been very good. And again, finances for the club is massive again.
Now, obviously, like everyone in lockdown, you've started a podcast. Why have you done that? There's too many rugby league podcasts as it is, right? We don't want the competition. It's hard enough to get chased up the charts by the Super League podcast as it is, without everyone else coming in. Why have we come to join this madness?
Well, initially it was just something we said as a little joke.
Yeah, we wanted to do it with other fans, but we contacted the club initially and spoke to media manager called Dan Bamber, and it was something he'd also thought of. So when we contacted him, we had the initial thought of, we don't want to step on your toes, are we all right to use the name? Just because we wanted to appeal to Oldham fans. And he turned around and says, we'll get your players on. Use it as media rather than a podcast, but you call it a podcast. Be a bit more open, like bar chat rather than official interview. So our interest was to get fans player interviews rather than like you're talking everything rugby league. We want to tap into that, but our main interest is
the inside,
a little bit of fan interaction, but mainly giving the fans something that the club can't offer them, and being able to see and hear players, and eventually get fans on and do more stuff like this. But this stuff's down to you guys. You do all the everyday rugby league stuff. Ours was basically trying to be part of the media team at Oldham.
Trying to be involved.
Yeah.
So did you have any background then before you started the podcast? Or
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing, as you can tell.
but that's the great thing. That is the great thing about the Zoom and Skype and everything today. When I started in radio 2 decades ago, you had to actually go to a radio station and have a desk and have equipment and everything. And now everyone can have a go, which is great because we can find talent out there who didn't have the opportunity before. It's brilliant. And obviously the club have welcomed you with open arms, which is great to see clubs recognizing that there are new avenues out there to get their message out, which is great to see.
Yeah, and 100%, they've literally, the fact that we could do it with the club and they've been so open and active in giving us players and giving us ideas and options and letting us set up an account with the name and helping us with, like Dan, I said, he helps us with the ideas to set us up. He crops our videos out. He'll do the editing. He does everything for us, and the chairman's fully behind it and wants us to do it, and he's pushing us. So everything is good at the moment, and hopefully it carries on because we want to push it, see where we can push it. If we can start doing more interaction and get fans on and do more stuff like this and join you again or get ex-players on, it's something we want to do.
Yeah, and eventually it's going to get back to us being in on match days and hopefully interviewing the coach after the games or man of the matches. And
it's still new to us, but hopefully we can get something out of it. And we enjoy it. We're fans. At the end of the day, we're interviewing the players for the other fans, but we're doing it for ourselves. We're asking questions fans want to ask. So we get to see the players, and it's a bit fanboy, but hopefully younger fans will appeal to it and we'll get some younger fans involved. Even if younger fans start doing it with other clubs, I'd like to see that on the media side of things.
And you've got a forthright and very quotable coach there as well in Matt Diskin. I don't know what your relationship is with him yet, but I can assure you that if you get the chance to speak to him, he is well worth listening to, and he's a real deep thinker about the game. I would imagine that he'd be keen to, again, support everything that you're trying to do.
Yeah, well, we've had Brendan on, Brendan Sheridan, who's his assistant, and he's fully behind it. He wanted to come on and talk to us, and more than us being able to speak to the fans and to the players and about the club, the players have got a voice. The players get to talk about it and give their opinion on games. And we want Diskin on, and we know that he won't want to come on. We've been told that players want to come on. It's been, like I said, welcome with open arms, and I think that's the next step. It's getting the bigger interviews with the manager and getting Chris on, the chairman, and getting his thoughts, and hopefully we can get them interviews.
Well, Chris, of course, who was such an advocate for summer rugby and was way ahead of his time. That you mentioned new markets, new audiences, and clearly, resource is an issue right throughout the game. Do you like to see an Oldham women's team running out maybe in the Super League? We talk a lot about the women's game. I think it's no secret that we think it's the coattails on which even the men's game can run at the moment. Is that something, again, that you as a young supporter, you'd be pushing the club if it can to get involved in?
100%, because we've got a sister who's Oldham
rugby. I think it's good to have all sorts of teams. I think it's good to have a youth system, like you said, the women's team. It's a big thing now.
Yeah, you see a lot of Oldham amateur clubs with a couple. I think you've got a couple of mixed
open age teams.
Yeah, open age teams where there's a lot of girls playing rugby, a lot of women playing rugby. I think I'd love to see it. I think it'd be good for Oldham. It'd be good for the game, for the men's game as well, because anything rugby league promotion is what we need right now.
And in terms, again, of competitions that you can make an impact in, how important is something like the 1895 Cup that, admittedly, this year you've gone out of, but every year you can wake up with the prospect of knowing that Oldham could be at Wembley. I mean, again, we've got to cater to your market rather than think, we'll never win the Challenge Cup, so we may as well not bother entering a team in it.
Yeah, I think there's something similar in football in the lower league, like a lower league trophy, and it's not been taken too well. But I think as an Oldham Rugby League fan, to be able to go to Wembley in any competition, you'd snap your hands off. I'd be there tomorrow. It's something you want to see your club play at the highest level, in the biggest games. And to be in that cup, it's a cup at the end of the day. It's silverware. It's a big game. It's a payday for the club. It's a day out, and it's the biggest day out you can get at our level. Because realistically, we're not going to win the Challenge Cup, and the likelihood is we're probably not going to be the top two in the league. So that is, I think, it's massive. It's good that something like that's there.
It's competition that caters to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, because not every club sees it that way, does they? In the Championship, they see it as a bit of a annoyance because they want to get into Super League. But for those who are happy to keep their head above water, it's a great opportunity to, as you say, get to Wembley and make some money. I'm going to turn the tables on you because I know you're recording this. Do you want to ask us anything before we say goodbye? So I've thrown it on Phil as well. You don't know.
No, it's just you're assuming that we'll know the answers to anything.
Well, I didn't even know Oldham were in the Championship, Phil. So you know.
What is your opinion on the lower league rugby? Is Championship and League One integral to rugby league? And do you like the current structure? Do you think it needs a bigger restructure? Do you think the leagues need to be bigger? That's something we have a conversation about.
Have we got another half an hour, Phil?
I reckon it's a relatively easy one to answer and an incredibly complex one to actually sort out. But you almost now have two arms of the same sport. One is the full-time game and one is the part-time game. You have to have both because the whole is bigger with it. But I do think there is a case for now separating it. And some of the things I sort of deliberately asked you at the beginning was to get a feel for fans of a club like yours who are a lot younger than those who are making the decisions, to find out how it would work best for you. And I just think if you were in a division whereby you were playing the likes of, I don't know, Batley and Whitehaven and Dewsbury and Swinton on a regular basis, in the knowledge that A, you've got the 1895 Cup and a chance to be at Wembley, and B, a Championship grand final, which was maybe played at a prestigious venue, that if you won it, there was a huge cash prize attached to it, but not necessarily a promotion. That if you think that would work from your end, that's the direction we should be going in. And I think the longer we delay doing something like that, the harder it is to bridge that gap. And we have a division in the Championship which is saleable, but there's an inherent fissure in there between, you know, we've seen it with Toulouse this year, that, you know, there was a possibility that they may not even be able to play all of their games, and the penalty for that was because they were full time, and to me they shouldn't be penalised for that. I also think you have to have a gate that's open somewhere, so that if Chris was to find a huge backer that wanted to pour millions of pounds into Oldham and take them into a full-time scenario and play in Super League, they should have the opportunity to do that, provided they had the ground that went with it and all of the necessary resource. So you can't close that level of ambition. But I think if you're playing to a level where you can be competitive on a week-to-week basis and win meaningful things, that's what we should be looking to create. And I think we're at that horrible halfway house at the moment, that we're neither one thing or the other, which is now me rambling on, but it's been great to get your views on how you see your club, because we should be asking you and acting accordingly.
Yeah, I think it's something that is obviously there. Fans know that it's something that could happen in the future. I think that the gap now between Super League and the Championship, and even in the Championship to League One, is so big. And you're seeing it with teams that go up and teams that come down. When teams do go up and spend money and can't cut the Super League because of the difference, they're coming down, and the financial aspect with Bradford, with Widnes, they're struggling. But where do you separate the line? Do you stick with the current Super League that are in there and separate straight off, or do you take your teams like Widnes, Bradford, you know, the bigger teams that have been up there? Where do you draw the line?
I think it's a financial thing these days. So if you're looking at Toulouse are full time, then there is a case for saying, you know, they now need to be playing against other full time teams on a regular basis. And unfortunately, because of the economics of sport, which we've seen with the European Super League, there is a gravitation of money to certain teams and certain investors. Newcastle is going to be really interested in your division this year, because they're almost the example of a team that are moving out of that part-time environment into a semi-professional one, into a potentially full-time one. They've got the backers, they've got the facilities, they're getting better players. Clearly at the moment they're not having things all their own way, and in respect they shouldn't, because you do have to graduate. But I think that there needs to be an avenue of people who have ambition and backing, who can play at a certain level, and those that are community based and have a smaller supporter ability that play at a level where they're competitive. And I think there is a natural decision. It's not based on who's there at the moment. It's who can be full time and who can't.
Yeah, I think like you said before, if you split off and you've got a separate league of teams who are all on the same caliber, it makes it more competitive. And like you said, with it, like a championship grand final, it's something to aim for against teams of the same level. And it's not like you've got your Toulouse who are, like you said, full time and they're running riot in the league.
Yeah, and it's the same with like you mentioned on like the European Super League in football. You're seeing a kind of franchise league in this. Is it the American League, the Northern American League, with Toronto joining it, and all these clubs that were rumored to be joining the English leagues are now seeing money elsewhere. So the Super League clubs either need to jump on that or create their own thing, because other than the players that come through our clubs, the financial benefit from us playing them isn't there. And it'd be a shame to see the Super League split off from the Championship or the lower leagues, but it would make our league a lot more competitive in you're not getting promoted, but you're playing to your own grand final, your own
standard.
Yeah, you're in then your top division. It's just whether other fans and other clubs get on board. I don't know what our club thinks of it. I don't know what other clubs think of it. As a fan, I think every year the difference, the class of rugby league is getting better. It's getting quicker. The rugby's getting better. In our league, the rugby's getting better, but there's becoming a little bit of a gap in our league of there's the top six and then there's the bottom. And the longer that goes on, like you said, the gap's going to become more and more.
You're supposed to tell us that the rugby's getting worse. Everyone tells us the rugby's not as good as it used to be. When we used to have scrums, not even proper scrums, and proper play the bowls and everything else. Well, I mean, unless we can find some funding to produce a Greater Manchester Super League, which we'll send an email to Andy Burnham, see if we can sort that out. We wish Oldham well in the championship and success for your podcast. Where can we find you?
We're currently on Podbean, I think, like you. So we're on Podbean. We use the club's official Twitter account to promote things as well as our own. We're on Twitter,
Spotify, Apple.
Yeah, and we use the club's YouTube account to post our video versions. So yeah, we're on everything we can be. But everything's posted on our Twitter account.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure. It's always good to get an opinion from over the Pennines of people that are accused of being Yorkshire biased. And the best of luck for the season and with the podcast.
Likewise, thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
To Oldham. We were not in League One, as I did think yesterday. I don't know why I thought they were in League One. Especially not when they've been playing for weeks as opposed to the rest of League One.
We've lost 2020. You can't remember what division they were in, where they started, where they finished. But, I think a poor result for them this week, but full credit to Whitehaven. The guys were saying that they didn't think the scoreline reflected the effort, but that is a really good win for Whitehaven. And, Oldham look like they are going to be, as the guy said, there's a natural split in that division. They want to be the top of the bottom half of that division and clearly not get relegated. But I think they're refreshing. I think talking to guys like that who are young, who have are coming to the game from so what I was trying to say when we introduced them, they see it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And actually, in some respects, their views and their perspective is far more valid than the likes of me, for certain. So let's bring people like those into the debate, hear what they've got to say, see what appeals to them, what is going to make them go to games and invest in their club and the sport. I know we've spoken a lot about this full-time, part-time split, what the effect is going to be of the new television deal. I get the impression that those guys want to see a competitive game every week. And if that means that they're not playing Wigan, it's not going to bother them.
Batley Bulldogs, they are the team of the minute. in the Championship. They beat Sheffield 30 points to 18 on Friday.
Feature on them in the new 4020 magazine out this week. I thought I'd get that in because it's been probably an hour and we haven't mentioned it yet. But we have a piece on how Batley are consistently overachieving and well done and good luck to them. They've
lost an MP, but they're winning matches. I can't wait to see if I might have slipped something to the column this month or not. Which I did find it very hard to write this month. I don't know why. The month before, I'd written most of it like 2 weeks before deadline. This month, no. But you'll have to wait and see when it comes out in a couple of days' time. And if it has, I'll point it out next week. On Sunday, Bradford edged out Swinton 23-22. Bad news for the Calners. London beat Newcastle in a high-scoring thriller, 50 points to 30. Toulouse 70, Widnes 0. Toulouse in their new base of Swinton, so they might as well change the name to Manchester Olympique. Widnes. I mean, we kind of touched on it there, didn't we? But I don't know. Are the expectations too high from fans who are wanting them to be something they can't be because the money's not there? I don't know.
I don't like commenting on any game I haven't seen. Clearly, Toulouse are building a team and recruiting some players who are of certainly lower Super League standard, if not higher. You look at that team sheet and there are guys on it, and they are still recruiting with Lucas Albert coming in, who are undeniably of Super League standard. Widnes have gone through the process of going from full-time to part-time. And I just think this is another example of oil and water. The two do not mix. And it's a salutary example for the sport of where do we go from here. And I know we've spoken about it a lot. And I know that it's concerning a lot of people within the sport that we haven't come out of the pandemic looking different to how we went in it. And so not only have we had issues beforehand that are starting to come home to roost with the new television deal, but there are other sports looking at how they need to change to respond to the world that we are now in. I'm not sure we've done that. We talked at the very beginning of all of it happening. It's a blank sheet of paper moment, and I still don't think we've got the pad out. Now, one of the things, again, in the magazine is a little bit more detail on something that we hinted at last month about Brian Noble has been involved in and working on a plan of how to move the game forward, which is a whole game philosophy. So without wishing to spoil anybody's read, the premise starts with the ball in the hand of a 5-year-old boy or girl, and how do they make rugby league their career of choice. So everything from governance and structure and finance is to enable that 5-year-old to fulfill their potential. And if that is that they end up playing for their country in a meaningful international window, then so be it. But we have to structure the game to give them the best opportunity to do so. And at the moment, there are fractures within the game that means that they can't. I think the only way you can achieve that is to bring in external funding, even more necessary now that the television money has gone down. He has gone out and spoken to external funders who are keen to invest in the sport. The only thing that is holding them back from the sport is that the sport itself is governed in such a way where they're not going to be allowed in and have some say over what they would like their investment to look like. And there doesn't seem to be a willingness, particularly among the Super League clubs, to say to any investor, we all agree on what the sport should look like, because they can't agree amongst themselves. So there is a growing frustration that there is a boat sailing off that we're missing. And I think he's revealed some more of the detail, but doesn't want to do all of it yet, because I don't think he feels that process has come to a natural end and or a positive outcome. But I think there is a mounting level of frustration that we have to do something and we're not doing something. So again, I think we're at a very interesting crossroads.
The view never changes. So well done Toulouse. They beat Widnes. Halifax beat Dewsbury 36-0. So 2-0 in the championship. Some very funny tweets based on that. And we'll come to the virtual signalling Women's Challenge Cup in a bit. And Featherstone Rovers, family pride, beating York 16-12 in what sounded like a cracker.
Dramatic of endings. York going for a drop goal to win it, gets charged down. Craig Hall picks up the ball and goes 70 metres to the other end. And again, when you have teams of similar quality, we get games that we just sit back and purr watching. So we have to find a structure where virtually every game are teams of equal quality playing each other.
I mean, I said I didn't know Oldham were in the championship. I didn't realise the women's championship and League One were back, to be honest, but you never find anything out anywhere. League One for the men is back. North Wales Crusaders beat London Scholars 44-24 on Saturday. On Sunday, Rochdale Hornets 40, West Wales 16. Keighley 44.
No Gavin Henson.
No, he's injured. A calf injury I saw on their Twitter earlier. But apparently Rangy Chase did some so that was good. Keighley 44, Doncaster 18, Coventry 20, Barrow 38. That sounded like it was a good hit up from the Bears in that one. And Hunslet 16, Workington 28. So a good weekend for all the Cumbrian sides. I know Barrow or Lancashire, but you know what I mean.
I think one of the games of this weekend will be West Wales against Coventry.
Get that on the telly. Why have I clicked World Club Challenge on the RFL website? That's
not going to be happening for a while, I don't think.
Women's. I mean, I do enjoy the fact that you can get the results from the Igasund Cumbrian ARL on the RFL website. But it's a pain when I'm trying to find something. The Women's Challenge Cup, the Virtue Signalling Betfred Women's Challenge Cup, had some close ties in it. Apart from Leeds, who finding themselves at home at the Mobile Rocket Stadium, beating Bradford 70 points to 0. And they're there again on Sunday, Phil. It's a double header Wakefield versus Leeds this weekend. I'll take one win. I'll take one win out of two.
I hadn't realised that the women's games had moved to Wakefield from Wheatwood.
Well, I hadn't until a couple of weeks ago. But I did ask, and they're there again this week, so I'll be there on Sunday. So post-match stuff coming up, and I might do because there's like 2 hours between games, and I don't think there's going to be many media there, as opposed to last week when I could speak to Tom Maguire. I might just do a live thing. So if you're around on Sunday afternoon on Facebook or YouTube, I'll do a live stream, and we can have a chat on there. St Helens beat Fev 44-10. It's obviously Featherstone improved from the week before, which is good to see. Andrew Dobson back in the team as well and scoring. Fev play York this week, who pulled off the upset. Now, I was recording a bit about rugby league for a betting podcast, and I tipped York to cover the handicap against Wigan, and I recorded that on Wednesday, and then they signed 5 players from Castleford. So I didn't expect them to win necessarily, but they did. Bookmakers won't be happy. 30 points to 24. They, from what I've seen of the highlights, they slotted into that team very well to say they only signed a couple of days before to beat a good Wigan team.
Well, I watched the game on the Sportsman website, and I have to say, probably the game of the weekend in terms of skill, in terms of excitement, in terms of backstory. 7 new players, 2 from Bradford as well, we shouldn't forget, as well as the 5 top liners from Castleford. 1 training session. Clearly, Lindsay Anfield is there. The Cass girls know how Lindsay wants them to play. And every single one of those that came in made a huge difference. I think there's only one real question to be asked. And our correspondent and friend of the show, Danica Preem, in her column in this month's 4020, does indeed ask that question. And that is, are you robbing Peter to pay Paul, or should that be
Petra to pay Paula?
Petra to pay Paul. Excellent, brilliant, well done. Remember that one. Because if you're denuding Castleford to build York, the women's game isn't necessarily taking a development step forward. If Castleford have enough young players to come in and keep them at the level they were at, brilliant. We've got another team that's going to be competitive, and we've gone from 4 teams of a certain level to 5, which is what the game wants. I think we need to see that play out. But to go back to a point you made earlier about the men's draw, we have now got the absolute perfect women's semi-final draw with York playing Castleford. And again, we have got time to build this up into the new modern women's rivalry. Let's let them get at it. Take the shackles off, say some stuff that is going to build this up, put it out again on free to view on YouTube or the Sportsman. And I reckon you will have so much interest in this game that it'll match the Daryl Powell derby in the men.
I mean, we don't know where the final is yet, do we? Because that's
we
not
will
been
know.
announced yet.
We will know the semi-final details probably tomorrow,
which is good because I'm keeping my diary free-ish because I've got kind of commitments on a Saturday, but I'd love to be at the final if I'm allowed to be there. I am there on Sunday, and after Wakefield beat Leeds, obviously, it's York versus Fev. So I will try and badger the York people to say we ate Cass. They smell, but I don't think they will do because they're all coming.
And
out
that's why we left.
Yeah, they're all coming out and saying, "Oh, there's nothing. It's just opportunity."
No, I don't think they would say anything to the detriment of the team that they've been at. But what we want them to say is, don't love them anymore. We want to knock them off their stride, and we want to get to the Challenge Cup final. If they stand in our way, get out of our way. And I do have to say that the skill of Rhiannon Marshall to set up the first try is as good as anything I've seen this weekend. And what was great was there's no comparison that you need to make to the men's game. Just enjoy it for what it is. Whilst we talked a lot about what may or may not be missing in the men's game at the moment, in that it looks a little bit one-dimensional, the women's game has got everything. I think if you are just a supporter of the best that this sport can offer in terms of skill, commitment, physicality, that women's game had more of it this weekend than anything I saw in the men's game.
I think I've said before, I don't think there's a 13 like her in the men's game,
or even a 22.
I know you said don't make comparisons, but I don't think there's a 13 like her. Grace Field hat-trick. She's in the World Cup Team of the Week, which I know doubt boil the urine of some people, which is hilarious. If anyone pays attention to these things and gets upset about them, I don't know why, but there you go. I'll tell you what was a bit annoying in the week. On Cass beat Warrington 26-6, I didn't mention that. So Cass, obviously, having lost those players, the players who they had did step up. And lovely footwork from Georgia Roach on one of the tries as well. One of the comments from Bradford ahead of the game against Leeds about playing elite teams, having been battered by Saints in week 1. If you're in the Super League, you're either elite or you're not.
Well, the whole of women's sport at that level has been brought back because the government have acknowledged it is an elite sport. So,
and I think
protocol. So don't say we're not elite, because not only are you saying we're not elite rather than the sport isn't elite, but if I'm in the treasury, I'm going, why have we given X million pounds from National Lottery to support the elite return of sport if one of the clubs is saying, but we're not elite? Dangerous road.
I think the players who took exception to that comment were right to do so, because it not only it diminishes your own team when you say that, but it diminishes the
competition. It undermines the competition, yeah.
And as we say, York versus Cass, great story ahead of that one. And what a great story Saints Leeds is as well, because twice in 2019, Saints so close to beating Leeds. But Leeds being Leeds, they do Leeds things, they get through, they win both finals. And as Faye Gaskin told us on this programme last year, if it weren't for a wedding, they would have won the Challenge Cup. They would have been there and won the Challenge Cup at Bolton. But she wasn't there and they didn't.
Well, we need her to reiterate that before this semi-final to a wider audience and build up that rivalry.
I'll dig the clip out again. But yeah, that will be another good game, because they're two good teams, and it'd be good we won't get to see them play against each other too much with the way the league's structured. So to see them at this stage of the season will be very good. And
again, we have to say that having the women's final, on BBC Two is a massive step up for the sport. I also think that we are almost following the road that women's soccer has taken, that they have emerged into a Super League where there is a clear disparity between some teams and others that have more resource. But when they were starting out, a lot of stuff was put out almost free to air or please watch us. On the back of that, they got sponsorship from people like Barclays. They've now got an £8 million television deal, which is split between the BBC and Sky. We're going to have one of our two prestigious occasions on the BBC, live on BBC Two at 11 o'clock, leading into two men's semi-finals. And whoever plays in the Women's Challenge Cup semi-final, it's going to be a tremendous game. You know, if York get there, it's the story of how they've now recruited their team. If Castleford get there, it's they overcame York to get there and they're the bridesmaids. If St Helens get there, that's because they've beaten Leeds and turned around the two narrow defeats they've had in that competition in previous years, and they're the team to watch this year with so many likely England players. If Leeds beat St Helens and gets to the final, is it going to be a three-peat? And what is it Leeds have got? Whoever is in that Women's Challenge Cup final, that is a massive story to be played out on BBC Two. And this is the area of the game, and we say it every week, and I make no apology for it. This can drag the men's game with it.
It is testament to the hard work and the effort of the players and of those at the RFL who have backed this, because if you think about this, 4 years ago, the final was played somewhere in York. 3 years ago, it was a standalone event in Warrington. We were there. Not many other people were there, but it was on the BBC website. 2 years ago, it was on the Red Button at Bolton. Proper TV coverage just on the Red Button. And now it's on actual television. And that's quite impressive. That is quite impressive. And people, everyone who's involved and has been involved from day one should be very proud of their achievements in what they've done, because it's not easy to get stuff on TV. It's on one of the main BBC
mainstream
channels.
TV, mainstream.
Women's
and you pointed it out quite apt and appropriately. Celebrating David Attenborough's birthday, who brought us the BBC Two Floodlit Trophy, and here we are. What is it? That was late 60s, early 70s. Yeah. So here we are, almost 50 years down the line, doing exactly the same thing with the women's game. I hope clearly it doesn't go defunct like the Floodlit Trophy did, but there is something innately appropriate that while we celebrate his birthday and as the commissioner of BBC Two, he set a ball rolling that now the women will be appearing, and it's fantastic. And reading some of the quotes of the 6 teams that are going to form the Super League South, which we briefly mentioned on the show last week, it's an amazing opportunity. London Broncos had their first talent day this weekend for women and girls that wanted to try out for the team that's going to be in Super League South. I think they were knocked out by the numbers that turned up, and the Cornish Rebels are saying we have had some girls come through a school program. We haven't really been able to offer them anything. To now have a Super League team down here, this is massive. And there's a stadium coming on stream down there. They're going to be able to play out of, all being well. The bridges that are being built in the women's game are something that, I think, again, Danica mentions it in her column. Are they exceeding the men's game at the moment with the number of teams they've got playing in Super League and the geographical spread that is now represented under the banner of Super League? And the answer is yes to both of those. And
it's not hard to see the clubs where they're putting in resource other than... I'm trying to think of the word to explain this. So I don't want to denigrate the hard work of people, because that's very important, but that can only get you so far and people can only do so much. But there's the extras on top of that. And you can see the clubs that are doing the extras on top. And we've seen that with Leeds, obviously, from day one. The clubs that are doing that are the ones who are going to get the rewards going forward.
And it all...
Maybe that's the lesson for all the other clubs. And you know, I look at the Super League now, and it's very West Yorkshire heavy. And I look and I don't know why, but we're told East Yorkshire's this hotbed of rugby league. why are there two teams there in the champ? Where's the team from East Yorkshire in the Super League then? Where's the Hull or Hull KR in Super League? Because we've got a Huddersfield.
If you're talking about blueprints for how the sport moves forward, is there a case for saying a women's centre of excellence that represents the whole of Hull rather than a club as currently exists? We need to look at all that stuff. It all has to be integrated, otherwise it doesn't work. I think the other thing that is right as well is that what we need to view it as is development, because the whole of the women's game is at the very beginning of a process. But the blueprint that they're working to at the RFL, and there are some people there who deserve enormous credit who have steered this through relatively choppy waters. They have had this idea of an integrated competition involving a championship into a Super League for the last 3 or 4 years, and they're following that blueprint, and they're not allowing the odd result setback along the way to derail them from what is a really good rollout plan. And it's leading into a World Cup, which is not to say England may win it. It could well be that the Gillaroos and the Kiwi Ferns still are at a level of almost professionalism that will mean that the teams they bring over deserve to be viewed in a slightly different aspect to some of the sides that they'll be facing. But I'm not sure we could be doing a lot more at the moment to get our women up to that level. And I for one, cannot wait for the Women's World Cup. And I think that the BBC can see the potential in that as well. And that's why we've got the Challenge Cup final on the BBC this year.
Well, there's something else I was going to say, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was, so it can't have been that. Oh, yes, congratulations to Danica Ross, who's also known player name 0 for her try at the weekend. So well done to her for that. Hopefully she doesn't score on Sunday. Warrington take on St Helens. Wakefield versus Leeds, the game on Twitch. Away from the stand, you. Bradford, Huddersfield and Featherstone, York kick off at 3:30 in the other two games.
Well, you'll be there on Sunday and a contact may be made. All being well, I will be at a game on Monday that has a crowd. And not only can we all not wait for that to happen, but it would be great to gauge the reaction of people. So I think we'll try and do that certainly in a written source, but maybe we can link up on Monday as well and talk about what it's like to hear "Get them on side, photo" live again.
We'll see what we can do. The other thing at PDRL, Wakefield drew again this weekend. There's too many draws in this PDRL at the minute. What's going on?
Great.
Golden Point. Where's the Golden Point?
I want to see smiles. The smiles on faces are worth more than any money. And LDRL as well is coming back, and not wishing to overly promote a magazine that's out again this week, we do have an interview with an LDRL player who's missed the sport so much for 14 months. And again, I think you read stuff like that and you realise community is what we're about, inclusivity is what we're about, not ridiculous comments on Twitter that really should have sanction applied to them. What we do well, we do really, really well, and that's what we need to concentrate on.
I'm jumping on the Featherstone bandwagon anyway because my cousin or whatever, those people who are related to you that you don't really know. It's like one game away from Wembley now. So, I'm jumping on that bandwagon now. I'm a Fev fan. Wakefield, who? What were they? I don't know. Enjoy Friday, Phil, at Emerald Headingley Stadium.
Interesting game.
Yeah, live on YouTube.
Yeah. That's again a hint to the future. So you'll be able to watch it even if you don't subscribe to Sky, which is really interesting.
Well, it's great because I'm working until 8, so I'll be able to in my home studio try and somehow manoeuvre a monitor to get the game on for a bit while I'm trying to butcher French pronunciations of racecourses. I
do think Leeds will win that game, by the way. I know you weren't going to ask me, but I do think they will. I think with Luke Gale back and possibly one or two others, Jacob Miller isn't going to be playing. Tom Johnson's had a bit of a setback in his concussion protocol. You probably don't find this a huge surprise, but I do think Leeds will win.
And as you've mentioned it, I think there has to come a point where, and we've mentioned players taking responsibility for actions on social media. They need to take more responsibility for actions in terms of head injuries, because we've just seen Stevie Ward retire because of problems with concussions. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that it's going to happen to other players in the near future again as well. So I'm not talking about Tom Johnson. I'm just saying in general. So, just take responsibility, bigger bans for that as well. Let's get it out of the game. Let's get all these things that are bad out of the game and make it as safe and inclusive as possible for everyone involved.
And I just think consistency of punishment is where it starts. We mentioned that about the chicken wing tackle. What was it, 4 or 5 years ago? The cannonball tackle. Not sure we fully got that one boxed off yet. But the same now is shots to the head. Doesn't matter whether they're intentional. Doesn't matter whether there's no intent. Although how you know what intent is, I've no idea. Anyone who is seen to, attack the head of another player, sent off, dealt with.
We know careers are short, and we know. I mean, I didn't read the Rob Burrow piece at the weekend because I couldn't, but I read the quote, and
outstanding.
That was all I needed to read, was that quote about ghosts, and I saw that and I couldn't read it, and life's fragile enough,
I have to say that is an example of the finest of writers with the greatest of subjects. And if you haven't read it, it's online. It's on The Guardian. It's Donald McRae, I think arguably the best sports feature writer that we've got. Spending a bit of time with Rob and Lindsay. We knew they were heroes. I don't even think we realised how much they were until you read that piece. And clearly Donald had a relationship with them over a little bit of time, and has got the eloquence to express that. It's all linked to the book that's coming out. That's Rob's autobiography in August. I think Donald's been sent some chapters of that, and I wanted to get obviously into the story. And if you haven't read it, clearly it'll bring tears to your eyes. The whole situation does, but read it, because it will enrich you as a human being to know how they're coping with what they're going through.
There you go. Something for you to do before the magazine comes out at the weekend. What's in the magazine, Phil?
Mainly the return of fans. I think we're trying to. We look at the television deal, the implications of that. We look at how the sport now needs to move forward, even in the light of the European Super League, because that is going to have implications for all sport. How does Rugby League respond to that? Interviews from all around the world. There's a really good piece about Papua New Guinea player who, again, the conditions they have to play under on the island, and how he rescued himself and made himself the person that he is through Rugby League. And again, I think that's a great uplifting read. So lots of stuff in there, most of which I will probably have forgotten, and even a reference to Ellis Lowry.
And hopefully some great references in my column, which we'll see if they've made it through. Phil, thank you as ever. We've talked for a long time today, and just think we've got one of these left until we'll be back. As Martin Tyler says,
with real biscuits. With real
biscuits. And it's live.